Welcome to Philly Tech Connect podcast, where Philly's tech minds meet. CEOs, developers, dreamers. This is your space. Each week, we explore the journeys of tech innovators. Join us and be inspired.
Hey everyone, Dave here with another episode of the Philly Tech Connect podcast. Today I'm speaking with Akinyemi Bajulaiye, a Nigerian-American entrepreneur with a multidisciplinary background that spans over a decade across the media, real estate, life science, and technology sectors. He has a degree in biology from the University of Pennsylvania and contributed to the launching of the Pennovation Center, a 58,000 square foot business incubator and laboratory in 2016. Currently, he's building Pentridge Media, an AI-powered automation and digital solutions agency with the mission to help SMEs and creators thrive in the modern landscape. Aki, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for having me, Dave.
My pleasure. Tell me a little bit about your background, Nigerian-American entrepreneur, multidiscipline. How do you kind of cover all these different topics?
Yeah, no, for sure. So my name is Aki. Again, appreciate you having me on your show. Nigerian American, so born and raised here in the States. My family's from Nigeria. I was born and raised in New York and then came to Philadelphia for school. Not sure who else is Nigerian is tuned into the show currently, but if you know anything about Nigerian culture, you're kind of encouraged to go in one of three directions in life, which is basically to become a doctor, lawyer, or engineer. And so, I was great into sciences growing up, and that was what I pursued. So I studied biology in college, and after graduating from school, I worked in science research and had opportunities there. I worked for a cardiologist and got really into the startup space through this class that I took while I was basically getting tuition benefits from working at this laboratory. And again, my background, I didn't really know much about startups and entrepreneurship and much else, to be honest, but I kind of, I guess, if you will, caught the startup bug. And so, interestingly enough, this is back in 2014, 2015. I actually left my job I was working at a hospital at the time and completely pivoted my career. And I went to go begin a venture called Share Anonymous, which was a mental health platform for college students. At the time, there was a real issue with mental health on college campuses. In fact, at Penn, there had been I want to say 10 or 11 suicides in the span of 3 years. Two of the people I actually knew personally who are on the track team. So it was a whole thing. I worked on that full time for a year. Went through a lot during that year as well, and then ultimately actually began seeking work opportunities again. I'm going back to a day job. And that was where I landed at the Pennovation Center. Were just opening up at the time, and but it basically, I say it kind of facilitated the pivot of my career, because now it's kind of like in this more like operations, like entrepreneurial space. Like it was basically a co-working space slash incubator, startup incubator, and so learned a lot during that time. I was laboratory manager. So interestingly, was still able to use my background. Continued working on Share Anonymous for 2 years while I was there, before actually putting that to rest. And then got into some other things, which I'd be happy to get into. Got into real estate during that time. I was a real estate agent, licensed in PA for 7 years, and then also got into technology too around that time. So you mentioned I guess before we got on here, I'm super into like trading and crypto and a bunch of stuff. But over the last 4 or 5 years, I've been in the space of emerging technologies, and that's kind of where the automation agency, which is what I'm currently focused on now, kind of comes into play. But yeah, very multidisciplinary. We have background in sciences, kind of like a more recent interest in emerging technologies.
Cool. Yeah, no, that is a lot of different. You've lived many lives for a man of your young age. One thing you hadn't mentioned yet was Pentridge Manor, which, if I understood it correctly, it feels a little bit like a co-working space. You had mentioned kind of like it's where sort of creators and artists and entrepreneurs can kind of come and work and share ideas and things like that. Is that at all related to your experience in the Pennovation Center and sort of the work that you were doing there, and that being kind of this like business incubator and also place where sort of ideas and energies come and collide?
I think there's a part of me that gravitates towards that kind of environment of like building community, kind of bringing people together. But really, Pentridge Manor was actually started as an Airbnb, and I bought a property, and a friend of mine basically uh, suggested I look into Airbnb. I was originally just going to be like a rental property, and so I put it on Airbnb. I learned about an app, Peerspace, which I hadn't heard of before, and I basically put it on Peerspace, and I had it on Airbnb, and then I would have it on Peerspace for some times. But I noticed that it was attracting, pretty like cool creatives and like different kinds of people when I had it on Peerspace. So, we had some pretty cool like artists come through to shoot music videos. People started shooting like documentaries there, podcasts, and things like that. And so going into 2020, it was 2023. I got it in end of 2021, and I decided to make it solely a content house. And so that's currently what it is, but we house different kinds of people, and that's where it started. But then now, kind of what I'm looking to do is start building a community around it, and so we have a directory that we're working on that will help facilitate people who are just like into creative pursuits and like our creative entrepreneurs. And yeah, so that's how Pentridge Manor started. A friend of mine was the one that named the house, and then Pentridge Media came from that, which was Pentridge Media was really a way of being able to add further value to the kind of people who are coming into the space, but also a way of being able to leverage some of the skills that I developed just over the years into something that kind of honestly does more like packageable, and that was the inception of Pentridge Media.
Very cool. You're the only other person I think I've ever met who has known and mentioned Peerspace, which I actually use that app as well
Oh yeah.
for my own house. Once we are on there, and we will get requests, not often, maybe like once or twice a year,
Yep.
for things like a music video. We actually had one really recently, like someone wanted to film like a Downy
Mm.
commercial, which is like fabric softener in the
Oh
kitchen.
yeah,
So
yeah.
when people were kind of looking for like a residential vibe.
You're showing your age, Dave.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't use it, but that's cool. But anyways,
Yeah.
it's a cool sort of share economy style website
Yeah.
that is not exactly like Airbnb, but similar in some ways. And so it's interesting that you decided to kind of choose to make Pentridge Manor a content house as opposed to your other options, maybe more traditional options, such as
Mhm.
like shorter long term, rental properties or the Airbnb or things like that. And so was that, that decision, was that more of like a financial business decision? Like you felt
Yeah.
that there was more upside to do that, or was it more like the vision and you felt like that this opportunity to maybe build a community and that might funnel into Pentridge Media kind of played a role? Like, how did you kind of go about deciding, like, oh, we're going to make this a content house?
So a big part of what drove that decision was just the experience I was having with Airbnb, and part of it was on me because it was my first time doing Airbnb, and something I realized is having very just clear cut and solid systems in place is key to having a good experience with the platform, and that wasn't the case. I felt like I was running around like a headless chicken. That year, I was the one answering calls at like 2 o'clock in the morning to give washcloths and things like that. And but I noticed because it was also on Peerspace, the experience was just a lot more pleasant. Even just how people would treat your home. Like typically they'll leave it. You don't even really need a cleaner if you have your property on a Peerspace. Whereas Airbnb, there was so I've seen some things. And so that was largely what drove the decision. Because I was having a better experience on Peerspace. But then I was also noticing how much I just really enjoyed connecting with the people that would come into the space, and it was all different kinds of creators that have been there and that I've been able to connect with, even outside of the bookings, and then that's definitely inspired even just my thinking around where to take it going forward. But yeah, honestly, it was largely because I wanted to get it off Airbnb at the time. But but I think I would, I tell people I would actually consider Airbnb again in the future, but just like the systems are very important that you have in place.
Yeah, that sounds like some stories. We were actually thinking about whether we should put our place on Airbnb. Sometimes we go away for like a month or more,
Yeah,
and it's always nice to kind of get some tenants. One of the ones we've played around with is called Furnished Finders. It's
mm,
also it's primarily for traveling nurses, and the individuals are kind of usually looking for a place for 1 to like 6 months or so.
yeah,
And just the nature of the clientele, I feel like has been, we've done it like 3 times or so, and they're like working professionals and they're going to live in the place. And I just, we've never, well, it's a small number of people, but we haven't had any issues. They've always been like really respectful. It's just like a good kind of client base. And similarly with Peerspace also, which we've done a little bit more, maybe like 5 or 10 times. Also,
mm,
always really a nice experience. I just think that just the way creators like approach a space, they have
yeah.
just a more professional angle about it. Yeah, we have to do Airbnb, so no stories from that, but it sounds like, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a little bit of a different vibe.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. Yeah,
Cool.
especially being in I'm here in Philadelphia. I've just seen some things,
Yeah,
and
yeah. I had a friend who was pretty big in the Airbnb, and there was an issue with like high school kids like renting this place just to throw parties or
yeah,
something, and you kind of have to, and then that's a whole thing. So,
mm,
we'll see if we personally end up kind of making that call. But it's interesting to hear about your experience there. So, Pentridge Media, where are you guys at in terms of just how new is this?
yeah,
And what are some of the main services you guys provide, and why do you feel in today's day and age that this is it's the right time for this?
for sure, for sure. So I got started with Pentridge Media really at the end of 2023, beginning of was it end of 2023? Was it end of 2022? End of 2020? Yeah, end of 2020. It's been about a year and a half now. I think honestly, time just like kind of starts blending together after a while. It's been about a year and a half now, and it started really as like a content editing service. I have a podcast that I worked on for 4 years called the Pepper Soup Talk Show, and I was the member of our team who would help with editing the shows and chopping up clips and things like that. And you sure know very well like how time consuming like the podcasting can be and like the editing of it and whatnot. And at the time, I came across a tool, Opus Clip, which is AI tool that I know a lot of people started using for like chopping up clips as far as like social media goes. I was a part of that process, and it saved me maybe like 70% like of time, like cut down my editing time. If I was spending 15 hours a week editing episode, and our episodes would be pretty like long form, and so I'd spend an hour like listening through it all and then going in finding the clips, choosing which ones to post. And so it cut down my time significantly. And so what ended up happening was I shifted more from that interest in content editing more to getting deeper into like these AI tools and like how to leverage these AI tools to just improve efficiency in your business. And so I think throughout the time I've been working on Pinterest Media, but especially that first year, I myself was also learning a lot as far as um, digital marketing, automation, and ways of just being able to best thrive in the current environment that we're living in. There's so much that's changing as a result of AI. And then as things are continuing to get more and more digital, and then we know that after the pandemic with remote work, and even though a lot of people started kind of going back to work or into the office, this is definitely a post-pandemic world that we're living in. Like this is what I'd say that looks like. And so a lot of those, I guess, skills that I started picking up and information that I started learning got me very heavily into spaces like lead generation, automation, AI. And so the evolution of what Pentridge Media started as, which was more content editing, to what it is now, which is really AI agent AI powered automation agency. Is That's kind of like how that went along, and definitely happy to talk more specifics.
Yeah, no, I mean, it sounds like a great space. I feel,
Yeah,
obviously with AI, I feel like the opportunity for just automation and making processes more efficient has never been greater than it is now. I always find one of the more difficult things, with the team that I manage, and sometimes myself as well, which is just you don't know what you don't know, and you don't always know what the opportunities for efficiency are. And, sometimes individuals have been doing it obviously for potentially months and years in a certain way, and then all of a sudden new tools are kind of coming out, and it's not necessarily their job in the traditional sense to be aware of all the different tools that are being created and the ways which it may be affecting their workflow, and so that's where people don't really even know where like how much more efficient they could kind of make it.
yeah,
Businesses don't really even have an awareness of what the potential upside is for incorporating all this automation into their team. I think it's not necessarily about replacing individuals, just trying to make the workflow faster, and so you can
yeah.
do more high level creative strategic stuff. Have you found similar things with clients that you're trying that you're talking with, where they, how do you even kind of present the value of what you're trying to do? I guess, how do you kind of package it in a way?
Yeah. So I'll say that, what's been interesting, especially as I've gotten deeper and deeper into AI, is, especially earlier on, it felt very like hypey. It was like a lot of like hype around the space. And as time has gone on, I'd say that a lot of the use cases for businesses, particularly small, medium-sized businesses, are becoming more and more practical. And but then you're also able to ask. I've been able to connect with different businesses, see where the needs really are, and so what I've kind of gathered from that is, in some cases, in a lot of cases, especially like if you're a new business or you're earlier on, is very like actually simple, kind of straightforward, like systems that could be introduced. So a system as simple as like setting up a CRM, you know, with like a Monday.com or Airtable, like those kinds of like implementations can go a long way in just being able to keep track of the business that you're doing, and creating efficiency in that sort of way. Although it may not be the sexy kind of thing for a lot of businesses, it can like help set you up to be able to then like add in other kinds of tooling and workflows. So if you're a business that maybe is more established, or is thriving, and has maybe a lot of business coming in, and, and whatnot, then you are looking more at how do you kind of solve some of the bottlenecks that may exist, or how do you capture more of the value that you're already sort of attracting, and then that's when you start getting into more of like, I say, the cutting edge, like newer automation tools that exist, and then just as we're going along, I mean, I talk to friends about this all the time, just like how quickly society feels like it's shifting at this point. Right now, I know when it comes to, let's say, these AI tools, like OpenAI has their 12 days of OpenAI right now, and you're seeing these big tech behemoths release different tools and features and infrastructure day in and day out. And then you have like other like tangential spaces kind of moving alongside it. And I think for a lot of businesses, it can be difficult to know how to best even just approach business in the current landscape that we live in. And so my goal is probably like continuing to learn on that, and then help to like demystify just like where the opportunities exist, and then how to best implement the technologies that are currently here into your own businesses.
That's cool, man. Yeah, I love the space. I love anything
Yeah,
that just kind of makes things more efficient. I feel like everybody should kind of be in support of that. It's interesting. You kind of talk about like maybe segmenting the business into what like life stage it is. Early business might kind of, yeah, maybe need like that CRM and just creating that hub for customer relationship, and from there you've got your reporting and engagement and retention and follow-ups and different kind of things that are going to connect to that CRM and help kind of grow the business. Whereas if something's more established, you might be thinking about the deliverables of the service and the bottlenecks within that and things. And so a lot definitely to think about. For people that want to learn more about you and Pentridge Media, what you guys are up to, how should they do so?
Yeah, so I'm on social media, across social media, Sir Akinbi, Sir AKINB. I say I'm heavy on YouTube right now, so you can follow my YouTube channel, also Sir Akinbi on YouTube. You can just type in my name too, and yeah, pentridgemedia.com, and yeah, happy to connect and yeah, this has been really great, and it was great. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too, Dave. If I
For
can ask
sure.
you, if I
Go
can
ahead.
ask you, if I can ask you a question, how have you been thinking about, like, I know you run a digital marketing agency, how have you been thinking about just like this AI, kind of the impact it's currently having, and like how you looking at how are you looking at it?
Yeah, I mean, for running a services-based business, as we do at Shortlist, and kind of having some of our core services around things like content creation or website development, I feel like a lot of what you make in terms of profit, it comes down to sort of like how low can you get your costs while maintaining quality, right? Because
Mm,
there's, I mean, look, there's obviously a range in terms of what you can charge for certain things, but for most businesses, there's kind of like there's some price anchoring that goes on, right? Like people have in their head that this is how much 1,000 words of content should cost. This is how much like a backlink should cost. This is how much like a website design in dev should cost. And like I said, while there are ranges, there are really maybe high-end premium companies that charge a lot. Like for the most part, you need to really be able to justify why it costs double or triple, etc. To do it with you. Why is your approach or something so much better? And so if that's not the case, if it's sort of like, hey, you sell a quality service, but you're kind of anchored in that way, then it really comes down to the margins and reducing costs, right? And that's kind of where you open up the profit. And so typically a lot of the services that agencies do, they tend to be fairly manual, or there's been quite a bit of manual components. At least that was the case for many years. It was always kind of human beings writing content. It was human beings
mm,
sourcing backlinks, doing outreach, doing research, human beings who are designing, developing websites and things like that. And nowadays, human beings still play a prominent role, but there's a lot of tools that I think are applicable. And so we are just looking for all different ways where we can kind of incorporate them to be able to potentially, welcome more clients if we had the demand without having to increase headcount, to be able to allow the staff on our team to be able to do more higher level strategic creative thinking, as opposed to spending the majority of their hours in a day doing very manual tasks that have to be done, but are not that stimulating. And just kind of making sure that we are aware of any improvements going on in the industry with, like, certain tools now open up different data points, different, just access to different quality that, a regular person might not have, because they just don't have the full like view of everything kind of going on at once. Like a tool can kind of just crunch, obviously, like
mm.
just tons of data points and things like that. So we're kind of, yeah, we very much look at tools in terms of like process efficiency and
Yeah.
trying to lower costs and not increase our headcount. We haven't replaced anybody at work,
Mm.
but but I'm not looking to bring on more people. I'm looking to kind of like,
Yeah.
how can we kind of get more out of what we have.
Maximize. Yeah.
Yeah, so and it sounds like that's kind of consistent with your guys' approach
Mm-hmm.
at Pentridge Media, and the way you probably try to introduce it to companies that are new to AI, right?
Yeah. No, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
And I just being in digital marketing, you're like, to a degree, like we'll call it
Mm-hmm.
digital marketing as well. I just it's a nice, because you do have to sort of be aware of all the tools that are coming out, and know how to incorporate them. I went to an industry conference like a couple months ago, and AI is just like a very like sizable like share of the discussion,
Mm.
in terms of like the themes, the talks, and things like that.
Mm.
And I don't know if it's like that with all industries, but definitely in like digital marketing, I'm seeing it
Yeah.
like everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, hearing everything being called like AI powered or like AI, AI is just, yes, definitely a real buzzword at the moment. But I think what's interesting about it is just that that it actually is making that impact right now. So when you hear the conversation around, AI is a bubble and so on and so forth, like that may be the case in some ways when you think about valuations and whatnot. But at the same time, like when you look at like the utility of what is being done, and what is being done very quickly, then you kind of like have to pay attention. And yeah.
For sure, man. Great talking with you, and appreciate your insights into the process automation industry, everything going on at Pentridge Media, and hope to see you at some events for PTE.
Sounds good. I appreciate you, brother.
That's all for today's episode of Philly Tech Connect. Join our community at phillytechentrepreneurs.com. Special thanks to our sponsor, Shortlist.io, a digital marketing agency specializing in top-notch link building, content strategy, and web design. Stay innovative, Philly, and see you next time on Philly Tech Connect.